What's up guys, and welcome back to another video covering Pokemon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. And today I'm not going to be talking about the games themselves, but I will be talking about the games themselves. What I mean by that is nothing gameplay related. So what I'm going to be talking about today is something that I am calling plot flow. Now, I've got diagrams to explain this and we'll go over it in a minute, but what plot flow is going to allow us to do is analyse how different is Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon from Sun and Moon, and then looking back, how different is Emerald from Ruby and Sapphire, how different is Platinum from Diamond and Pearl, and is it wrong of us to have expected more from Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon? So as I mentioned, I have diagrams to go over this. So what I'm going to do for this video is I'm going to try something a little different. I've tried having diagrams and sort of moving them around on screen after I've recorded. However, that doesn't seem to work, so I am here and I'm going to be switching between my diagrams, and hopefully that's going to be a bit easier for me to do than beforehand. So jumping on, this is the first diagram we're going to look at very quickly, just to explain the concepts of what a plot flow diagram is. This is the plot flow diagram for Ruby and Sapphire. You can see it's a long line, a long flow diagram of events in the games basically. So if we zoom in and we just have a look at where it starts, we can follow down and see how it goes. So first up we have the start, obviously, and then we have basically a series of events that you have to go through to advance the plot of the game. So you go to Professor Birch's house, find out he's not there. Then you have to go to Route 101, you find him with wild Pokemon, you get your starter. You follow him to Birch's lab, then you have to go to Route 103 to battle your rival, head back to Birch's lab, you go to your house to get some running shoes, you head to Petalburg City to talk to your dad, head to Petalburg Woods and there's an encounter with a Team Aqua Grunt or Team Magma Grunt depending on your version. You head to Rustboro City, you head to Rustboro Gym, you go to Route 116, etc, etc. It goes on like that, and obviously for the whole game it comes down. There is one side section here, you see after Sutopolis Gym you have the option to go to the sealed chamber and then catch the 3 Reggies. And obviously once you finish a champion you have the post game with a few things optional you can do on the side. So this is basically the process of events you have to go through to complete the game. You see they're color coded, that's just for me really. Green is just dialogue or plot, red is a battle, and then yellow is sort of evil team, so Team Aqua, Team Magma, or any other Team Galactic, etc. And then further down I believe there was purple, which is just like a legendary plot event or a legendary Pokemon itself in terms of battling and catching. So that's the plot flow diagram for Ruby and Sapphire. Now what we can do with this plot flow diagram is, as you see, it's got one fork to the left and a few forks to the bottom for the post game. What we can do is we can also do a plot flow diagram for Emerald, and we can base it off this plot flow diagram here, and we can sort of think about how is it different, what changes basically. So if I switch over to this plot comparison, we have a look and see here. First, initially I've separated the post game out. It's just on a separate fork of its own at the bottom, so we won't talk about that for the moment, but you can see on the right hand side of the main branch what I have done is I have added in some extra stuff where it changes for Pokemon Emerald. Now Pokemon Emerald doesn't change too much. Most of the events are extra additions, so extra things you have to do. For example, once you leave Petalburg City you have to walk to the left a little and you meet Scott, and then you can head on to Petalburg Woods. Similarly, after Rustboro City, after you've after you've beaten Rust Turf Tunnel, you head back to Rustboro City, and then you actually get taken. You have to walk out of, you get taken to Devoncorp, and you have to walk out of Devoncorp yourself for the president to actually ring you. So it's just an extra stop basically. Nothing's changed. And then obviously similarly down actually towards the meaty plot section, after you beat them at after you beat Aqua Magma at Mount Pi, you have to head to the Magma hideout before you head to Slate Ball City, and then you carry on to the Aqua hideout yourself. Similarly, there is an extra section in Emerald for the Moss Deep Space Center where Team Magma actually attack it, as opposed to you just going and doing the gym and that being it. Of course, you also have the trip to Sky Pillar, but apart from that, the plot is basically the same. And obviously, then we have the post-game separation where there is a bit more stuff to do. Obviously, you've got the ability to catch Groudon and Kyogre, and of course, the Battle Frontier was a big section here. So you can see there is not actually that much of a change in terms of the main plot line you see here. There are maybe 2 or 3 extra additions, and then obviously the main differences here is the fact that you have an extra location to clear, and then obviously I guess an extra encounter with the enemy team or the evil teams at Moss Deep. So those are really the only changes. Similarly, I can show you the plot flow diagram for Diamond and Pearl. You can see again, fairly straight line here, straight to the bottom, and then obviously the post game with several legendaries for the Diamond and Pearl post game with Regigigas, Cresselia, Giratina, Rotom, which I'm classing as a legendary because it sort of was treated like that in Pokemon Diamond and Pearl. But you can see that with the main post-game such being the fight area, island, etc. But that's the main sort of storyline. So again, you start, you go to Barry's house, you go to Barry's room, go to Route 201, you have to go to Verity, etc. So that's the plot flow diagram for Diamond and Pearl. And again, we can compare this to Platinum. So you can see again the post-game is separated, but looking at the actual changes from Diamond and Pearl to Platinum itself, you can see extra addition to Route 201 there, extra little thing in when you arrive at Eterna City, you have to head to the statue before you end up going to see Cynthia. Then you have to head to Mount Coronet, have a little cutscene with Cyrus. You do the Heart Home Gym first, and then you go to Salacian Town to have a meet with Barry. Obviously you skip the Heart Home Gym later, and then obviously further on down into the plot there's a couple extra meetings with player characters, and that just splits up a bit. And of course the trip to Distortion World and then to Sand Gem Down before you can go on to Sunny Shore City, with the post game being pretty similar but with one or two differences. So again, you can see that Platinum didn't really change that much from Diamond and Pearl. It's the same storyline exactly, with a few clips off. Now before we go ahead, we're best to talk about what these diagrams can show us and what these diagrams can't show us. Of course, they can't show us the actual content of the game. They can show us where we went and what we did, but they can't show us what conversations we had, what dialogue there was, whether, for example, of course, with Emerald on Mount Pyre, there was Aqua and Magma, and there was sort of an extra layer to it there, as opposed to just being a single enemy team, or evil team, I never know what to call them. So that's the extra depth to it, but we can't see it with this diagram, we just see sort of where we go and what we do. So it's a bit limited in that aspect, but it does allow us to see the path we take through the region, basically, to reach the end of the game. Similarly, what I can do now is show you a very advanced plot flow diagram for Black and White and Black 2 and White 2, because they technically are sort of third versions, or they were thought to be possible third versions, but they end up being full sequels. And because they're full sequels, there are many differences to the plot and to the plot flow, i.e. where you go and how you step through your journey, that we can actually visualize. So here is that comparison straight up, and you can see there are basically two lines this time, with a few sections where Black 2 and White 2 join up at Castelia City, and then they go back, do a bit of extra stuff. They go up to Nimbasa City, go over to Driftvale City, and then they sort of, obviously once you go up to Mistralton Town, then you go off and you do extra stuff, and again you don't join up until further on down the game to do some similar stuff again at Opelucid City. So there are a lot of differences here if I just quickly zoom in as opposed to showing you now. So yes, you can see completely different starts of the games. You join up for Castelia City, you join up for obviously Nimbasa, and then Driftvale City with an extra maybe missing out some events or adding some events, and then obviously you have a bit of extra stuff in terms of the Pokemon World Tournament. Join back up for Chargestone Cave, and then you head on down and you go to this extra stuff with the Lentimus Town, etc, that wasn't actually in the original games, and then a bit of extra stuff in Opelucid City, as well as then all the extra stuff that Black 2 White 2 added. And obviously the post game is completely different because you headed a different way around the region. So you can see with two games that are vastly different in terms of how they navigate through the region, the plot flow diagrams, they reflect that. So if we then look at the Sun and Moon plot flow diagram, first up, obviously you can see it's a lot bigger than the previous diagrams, and that's because of the fact that it's a lot more hand-holdy, and we'll be doing a whole other video on this, and the diagram will help them, but you can see there's a whole extra living room, Route 1 bedroom, Route 1 Mahalo Tray, etc, etc. There's so much stuff here. The first trial ends up being about here to this, so this far down the diagram. Or is it here? I can't remember. Anyway, you guys get the idea. It's a long diagram, but that's the Sun and Moon plot flow diagram. So how different really is Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon compared to this? Well, here we go. Obviously, it's split up, and you can see the post game split down there. But if we zoom in on the actual main plots, if we can get to the top here, you can see towards the start of the game there is a bit of jigging about because you get your starter slightly differently, so there's a different progression there. There's an extra thing on Mahalo Trail with battling the Spearow. You miss out the battle in Iki Town obviously, and then there's no real change until you get down to once you leave Halloween City, and you have to do the interaction with Team Skull at Big Wave Beach as opposed to on the Berry Fields. That's just the switch there, back and forth. Then after Meadow, you go to Seaward Cave as opposed to going to the Meadow. You have to go to a Lone Photo Studio, back to Big Wave Beach, and then you get to go to Here Island, or Here City rather. Extra trip to Route 7 to meet Mon after the Wailer Volcano Park. And then further on down, nothing really changes at all for the rest of the Kala Island until you get to Hokulani Observatory for the trial with the Sophocles, because there's an extra sort of running about, that's all that really is there. And then moving further down, you can see obviously Executor Island is changed a fair amount in terms of the old process, and then finally the plot culmination, you have to go to Ultra Megalopolis to fight the final boss, and then obviously head back and do something slightly different around Mat Lanakila. But that's really it, and then obviously the post-game is reasonably similar, but slightly different in terms of obviously the main post-game trail, because you can see this long one here is for the Ultra Beast Hunt, and this one here is for Team Rainbow Rocket. So, really, of course, looking back at the Emerald comparison and the Platinum comparison, those didn't have much of a change to the plot flow anyway. Whereas Sun and Moon has got about the same, if not slightly more, changes to the plot flow, and of course, these changes can't be visualised as how impactful they are. For example, Emerald's changes are fairly impactful because you have two evil teams coming together and you have to fight both of them off, both sides, and of course then it culminates in Rayquaza. Whereas here, all we have is Team Skull still, Aether Foundation still. It's the same sort of main plot, except maybe some specifics changed, but the plot flow diagram allows you to visualize how different they are in terms of where you go, what you do. So looking back at these diagrams, we can't really say Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon should have done more. They should have had more changes, because when they were announced as third versions, you imagine looking back at Emerald and Platinum, that's very similar to what we got basically. But I think the reason why people complain, not to complain, but people dislike Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon and that fact that the changes are so small is because the Pokemon Company was touting them as huge changes. This is not the Alola you knew before, this is a whole new experience, they've changed the game, etc. Whereas really, looking at the plot flow diagram, they haven't really. The other thing to note as well is the fact that Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon are two games, whereas Emerald and Platinum are singular games made to combine a generation basically. So you had Ruby and Sapphire, and Emerald pulled them all together, brought it all together if you will, and finished off Hone Generation 3 in one nice package. Similarly for Platinum, Platinum is the definitive Sinnoh game. Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, while they are now the definitive Alolan games, are two games. Whereas really, looking at the plot, there is no reason they need to be two games. The only difference in the plot is that in one game, you get Solgaleo from Nebby, in the other game you get Lunala from Nebby. Now, how could this be combined into one version because it's based on day and night? Well, simply, you allow the player to choose which one they get. If they do this final plot during the day, you do it during the day. If you do it during the night, you get Lunala rather than Solgaleo, and it filters through that. Of course, there are version exclusives, and how they chose to do that was another thing, but they did not need to be two versions. I don't think anyone can really argue too much of an argument for there being two versions, because just there is no need. There is no reason for it to be. The only one you can bring up is version exclusives, and really nowadays with the GTS and stuff like that, there is not too much of a reason to have two versions. Do some version exclusives, i.e. if you were to do an Eclipse as a third version, just allow some Pokemon that were in Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon to not be catchable in original Sun and Moon rather, to not be catchable in this last version, as was the case in Emerald. So those are just some thoughts there, guys. What I want to know is what you think, along with the use of the plot flow diagrams, is are we right to say Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon should have done more, or is it fair enough to say yes, it's what we would expect from a third version? However, these are not third versions, they are third and fourth versions, and really that's a whole extra game we do not need just to tie some stuff up and bring a generation together. Let me know down below in the comment section what you think, guys, and let me know if you wanted to about the format of the video in terms of like the video itself, because it's something I haven't done in a while. So let me know if that worked better than some images. Of course, the reason I did it this time is because moving these diagrams around on a video is hard to do, especially when I haven't done any video editing in years, and especially when my software consistently crashes on me. Anyway, let me know down below what you think, and of course this will be it for me for today, so I shall see you next time. Thank you for watching. Goodbye, my friends.